finish your message, just hang up. Or to hear more options, please press 1.
Reprezent Radio 107.3 FM. So it's time for Riders World, the new segment on the show. But before that, we had Octavian with Party Hair. I'm joined in the studio by a very, very, very special guest. Her name is Temi Mwale. How are you doing today, Temi?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for coming down.
Thanks for having me.
So, Temi, who are you?
So I'm the founding director of the Forefront Project, which is a youth-led social enterprise, and our mission is to empower young people and communities to live free from violence.
Okay, and you've been doing that for how long now?
5 years, actually. I started it when I was 16, so we've been going for a long time. It's evolved a lot since then, don't get me wrong. But
yeah, but it's something, at 16, having such a big idea like that is massive.
I think when I was 16, I again felt pain like a lot of young people in London have felt, a lot of young people around in different cities around the UK have felt when you lose someone, and it's about just transforming that pain to purpose. You know?
Of course. So I brought you in today to talk a little bit about what you do and what Forefront Project does, and ask you a few questions on your idea and perception and just your general thoughts on the stuff that's happening in our environments right now. So you've spoken a bit about working with communities and things like that. So can you elaborate a little bit more on what you mean by working with community on the whole street violence situation?
Yeah, I think at the moment what people are not doing is investing in communities as a whole. So I think when you're a young person and you lose friends, you know, how many young people do you know that have lost not even one person, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people? That affects everybody in the community. If you go to a school and somebody gets stabbed that's from your school and they get killed, the school has no support or provisions in place to support you. I think the young people that are going through this, it's just one thing after another. They don't ever have opportunities to heal, and that's why violence becomes so normalised. That's why we get so desensitized to it, because no adults really in our society, even though they're saying this is wrong, they're not showing us through their actions that this is not supposed to be the way that it is, and this is not supposed to feel like this, you know?
It's almost becoming the norm.
But I think it's been like this for years, and that's why when I see headlines like, oh, you know, violence is on the increase, violence is rising, it's not to say that it isn't, but the news, the mainstream media only picks up and makes it a hot topic at particular times, and I'll always know because I'll get a lot of media requests, and then the rest of the months it's not that the young people I work with are getting stabbed any less, or that there's any less madness, or the threat to their life is any less. It's just the media's only interested from time to time. And so really, because it's so political, because it is such a political issue, we need to take it out of we need to make strategies and solutions that are cross-party. We can't just have, you know, one government or one party solutions, because when you make it political, you're risking young people's lives. It's bigger than any political party. Like, we need serious investment in all of our services, and we need the whole, you know, political system to get behind one strategy, one approach, and it needs to be very long term. I'm talking 10, 15, 20 years. That needs to be the plan, and if we'd done that 10, 15 years ago, I'm telling you, we would have seen a lot less 100%. Young people being killed.
But you know what's scary? I saw an article, I can't remember what it was on, but it was recent, and it was saying that knife crime is not actually at an epidemic right now. Even though there's so much, it's not a major risk to society, which is weird to me.
Do you know what? I understand that to an extent, because if you look at, for example, domestic violence, I'm telling you, 2 women a week are killed by their partner or former partner. That's a much bigger epidemic. And I'll also add that very few young people that I've worked with don't have domestic violence in their background. And many young people that are involved and affected by violence later on in life have this background of domestic violence, which doesn't get addressed. So in terms of preventative measures and adverse childhood experiences, traumatic experiences from a young age, we need to be looking at the impact of things like domestic violence. It's a much bigger issue. But in terms of saying knife crime isn't an epidemic, youth violence in general is just one symptom of a violent society. So there's a violence epidemic in our society. We love to consume violence. We are almost infatuated by violence. We love media that involves violence. We love music that has violence. To an extent, it's reflecting our reality. That's why we love to consume 100%. It. But there's also part of that that's just further perpetuating violence in our society. So I think especially when it comes to knife crime, I don't like focusing on the weapon. The weapon is the weapon of choice because it's easy, it's accessible. You can go to your mum's kitchen drawer and grab a knife. It's not just about what weapon you choose. It's whether you get beaten to death, stabbed to death, shot to death. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it's
still violence.
Using violence and to deal with conflict. That's what we need to be looking at.
So what's your thoughts? Because I know you talk a little bit about the public health issue on this. So what's your thoughts on that?
I think when you look at a public health approach is about giving young people and communities access to services that support all of their needs and deal with them holistically. And right now we don't have that. We have a criminal enforcement model which very much seeks to just use punishment. But punishment doesn't work because it's not preventing violence. We live in a very vengeful society. So other than wanting to punish young people and, for retribution to say, this is wrong and we just want to make you feel pain because you've caused other people pain, that's just creating more pain. It doesn't actually solve the problem and it's not a long-term solution. We can lock all of these young people up. They're going to come back out. Do you understand what I'm saying? We can introduce mandatory minimum sentences for just simple possession of a knife. That's 6 months mandatory minimum if you're 18 or 4 months if you're 16 or 17 the second time you're caught with a knife. Does this prevent young people from carrying knives? No, because the threat to their life when they're leaving the house is bigger than any sentence that you can
Something
give to
else needs to change.
Right, precisely. Exactly. And so it needs to, a public health approach will start from young, but it also acknowledges that everybody's impacted. Like my friend got shot and killed. No one ever asked me, how do you feel about that? Like it affected my whole life. I'm not a main victim, do you know what I mean? I'm not the primary victim and I didn't receive any support. When the young people I work with,
do you know what? You're touching on an issue that's actually so close to personally right now. It's such a close issue with me right now. So obviously everyone kind of knows the situation with my brother and what happened to my brother, but not everyone knows the situation with his friends. So like his best friend was with him, but he doesn't get any victim support, but he's right there with him. That's
I've worked with so many young people that I've watched their friends get killed in front of their eyes. They've not even seen it. Therapy has never even come up.
Yeah,
they've never even come up. I work with young people, like I said, that have been stabbed 3, 4, 5 times, different incidents over a year, 2-year period. They're not even seen as victims, and then when they pick up a weapon, if they attack someone else and the court deals with it, they're just the perpetrator, they're the offender. That's how it's going to be dealt with. No one wants to look at young people and work with them holistically in light of their own victimhood. We don't let young people be victims when ultimately it's not normal for a 13-year-old to almost lose their life 5 times. How do you think they're going to feel about that? Exactly. And like I'm saying, if those young people aren't even getting therapeutic support, any kind of mainstream support for what they're going through, you as a sister, as friends, as just somebody that goes to the same school as someone, you're not going to have any support at all. And a public health model seeks to deal with all of the individuals, all of the community that's affected by this. And that's just what we do not have right now, and it's what we need. We desperately need it because that's what's going to tackle and challenge this culture of desensitization to violence by us as a culture saying, actually, no, when you lose someone like this, it's not normal. People die every day, but people aren't murdered every day. That's not normal.
It's not normal. But we're going to get into some music and then we're going to talk a little bit about policing and stop and search and all that stuff, okay? So let's get into some music. We have Grey with Kolsch here on Represent Radio. Okay, Represent Radio, we are back. We are back and we're back. It's me and Temi Mwale. Now, I have to say this now. I struggled with her surname because I'm looking at it. It looks like it's meant to be harder than it sounds.
It's real simple. Mwale.
It is simple. All right, so we're talking a little bit about youth violence and everything in between. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about your thoughts and opinions on stop and search. So, thoughts and opinions on stop and search.
I get asked about this all the time. My problem with stop and search is it's one police tactic. It's not going to solve violence, and it always comes down to this people saying, but what if they take the knife and then that knife was going to be used? Let's look at this in perspective. I'm not saying that in those individual interactions when they remove weapons that's a bad thing. I'm saying overarching this using this approach as the only tactic for policing is very problematic because one, we know also the majority of stops are not carried out for weapons, they're carried out for drugs. They're carried out for drugs. So when you say I'm talking more than 60%, it's not you searching for weapons. Don't get me wrong, sometimes weapons are found, but when you walk up to a group of young people and you say you want to stop them and it's for drugs, it's not even for weapons. Like, I just say with your chest what you're looking for, because they can't say we're looking for weapons, because then it becomes difficult. Why would you be suspicious that you have a weapon? Because now I'm a young black boy, now I must be carrying a knife. And this is where it comes to the racial dynamic, and no one wants to address this. When policing when we've got issues with policing and the black community, I make this argument all the time. This is not today. This is not last year. This is intergenerational. I'm talking 50, 60, 70 years span. So no, I got asked on the BBC the other day, when we did reduce stop and search, it didn't lead to an increase in trust between young people and the black community and the police. Well, no, it's not, because there's still more than 1,500 deaths in police custody that have been unaddressed, unaccounted for since 1990. We need to look at this in perspective. I'm talking about the decision yesterday that there's going to be no further action with Rashawn Charles. This is not just about stop and search. This is about policing more generally, and the trust is not just about stop and search. That's one issue that young people have. That's one issue that, as I said, is intergenerational, because it's linked and connected to sus laws that our parents and grandparents experienced decades ago. It's more than that. It's systematic, and the police system, that's, even individual officers will say, but I'm not racist, but the Metropolitan Police Service is an institutionally racist, corrupt organisation. Let's just say it as it is. I'm just being blunt about it. And that's not saying individual officers don't have good intentions, but when you're part of that structure and system, your individual stop and search, you might want to be nice and good. You're just doing the deeds of a bigger system and carrying out what you're told to do ultimately. And the police is an arm of the state. So it also has all of that mistrust that young people and particular communities have with other institutions in the state more generally. And this idea that systematically we're being oppressed. And the police is just the front end of that. So does policing have a role? Of course, when people are committing crime, policing has a role. There's an enforcement role. The public health approach acknowledges that there's a role for enforcement. It's not that people are going to be killing people and nothing's going to be done. It's not about that. But there really needs to be, in terms of how do you improve the relationship, which is what you asked me, we need to take steps towards addressing these wrongs from the past and that's how you build trust. It's truth and reconciliation. That process has never happened, and it hasn't happened because there's still ongoing issues. People are still dying in police custody with no answers, no accountability. I'm tired, and that's why I just came this morning. I'm just like, no, I don't want to be asked about stop and search. I want to be asked about more broadly what is the holistic approach. Stop and search is not an holistic approach. It's not going to solve the problem. So I get very frustrated about this.
Clearly.
Thank you.
All right, so Temi, how can people get in touch with you and your Forefront project?
Yeah, we always need help and support at the Forefront project, and as I said, it's youth-led, so there's plenty of opportunities, leadership opportunities for young people. You can get in touch with us at Forefront Project, that's a number 4, forefrontproject.org, that's our website, and on all socials you can find us, Forefront Project. Me personally, Temi Mwale on all socials.
Well, thank you so much for coming down.
Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure talking to you.